Everyone has a story to tell. Some stories belong to history.
Ask not what your country can do for
It's
you.
one small step for man.
But most are ours alone.
It's a brand new police academy. I went through class number 9.
Kermit probably had 6,000 people. And the Friday night football game would have at least 3,000 people in the stand.
Stories big, stories small. Worthy stories, one and all. This is the story of George McLeod.
First of all, I was raised basically in an orphan's home, and Buckner's was called then. Mom worked, she traveled quite a bit, and that's really about all I can tell you about that. She just traveled, and we'd see her when she got in. No dad. No dad. I had one, but I didn't see him too often. I did know my mother's, and she had several brothers, and I would see them every now and then, but that was about it. The home owned a lot of acreage, and so we just, run around that. Well, yeah, we'd go out in the woods and play, and just kind of roam the countryside, and not really much to it. And there was a grocery store about a mile from where the home was. And we used to spend a lot of time there, not legally, but we'd just go there to get some candy or something like that. We had outdoor goals, and we just play there, and we'd choose sides. There were enough of us, and it only takes 10, and we'd just split up and play ball. Some of the goals were fruit basket deals that we'd hang some way, and that would be our goals. We just go from end to end. We'd divide up sides, and it depended on who was chosen first, and we'd just go from there, play from there. I'm sure we played other schools, but I don't remember a whole lot of that. Mom took us out, and so that's where I went to high school, was Sam Houston. We played ball, and a lot of the ball playing wasn't organized as such. It's just a bunch of kids would get together, and we'd choose sides and go for it. liked it. It's a good school. I like the school, and I like the coach. I think he'd been an ex-Rice coach, Buster Brannon. This guy would pick what he felt like were the best players. And some coaches had guys they liked, and they'd put them in there, and they didn't belong. And they'd really screw things up, but, you know, it's the way it goes. We had a freshman team, and then your sophomore year, you'd go into the varsity. I'd lay it all to the coach more than anything. I guess he saw something that that I didn't know was there. I wound up playing with him, and played 4 years there. Developing a hook shot was my primary shot. Well, yeah, it took a while to develop. I got that from another guy, an old man. We called him Daddy Dolinix. He was quite a bit older than the rest of us, but he shot a hook shot and he didn't ever miss. And of course, he used the backboard, which was a good lesson there when possible. But there were many, many times you couldn't use the board, so you just learn. You throw it up and throw it up and throw it up, and finally you get to where you're pretty good at it. I was quick enough to to work my way into the basket and get shots that way. I love playing, and I think we had a pretty good team at times. I've played by myself a lot, just shooting. You can't, with a team, it's hard to practice your shooting. I always tried to get the ball to the best guy that had the best shot. And if I had it, I took it. I practiced that hook shot all the time. And I got to where I was a pretty good shot with that. And that was the primary shot I had. And then I tried to play pro, and I didn't, I got banged around too much, and here I am a stick, and you get knocked around pretty good. Well, it's just basketball again to me. That's all it was. And I'd been playing, and it's just a continuation of it. When I graduated, I kind of went out on my own. I majored in geology, spent a lot of time in the woods on wells. They were a nice company to work for, and I was in a section that went in the field anytime there was some work to be done there. Basically what I would do, just set the wells, and then when we would log it, I would do that, and then bring logs into the office. They would have a tool pusher out there, and check in with him and just make sure everything's going right. There'd be a Schlumberger or a Halliburton truck out there running a log, And the guys that were in that section, just that's all we did was go out on wells. There were a bunch of guys, several guys, that's all we did was go out when the wells were logged. Basically, the kind of the Gulf Coast, in and around Beaumont, because that's where the office was out of. Well, I'd been wanting to go foreign, and the company opened an office over there. I think it was in Bogota, and I finally got over there. I like Colombia. Bogota is a nice city. Spent a lot of time in little towns around when you're logging wells. I enjoyed that part of it. It's a good learning experience for later on, particularly if you want to go out on your own. That's what I wanted to do, and at some point I did it. So I wanted to go get out on my own, and I stayed around with Sun Oil until I, felt like I could do what needed to be done on my own. And when I went out, I had a lot of chance to find out. When you're with a big company, you're controlled by your boss in Beaumont. You pretty well stay on that track, and you're constantly calling in and checking in and making sure everything was going the way they wanted. And when you're on your own, you're there and you know what to do and you do it. And it's not really that different than working with Sun, checking in and telling guys what you want, what needed to be done, and them okaying it. Then when you're out on your own, you just do it. You take the deal and show it around to people that are in that business, and if they like it, they buy a piece of it, or they might take the whole thing. You get it sold financially that way, and then you just get the rig out there and get it to buzzing. Most of the people that would buy deals were pretty well into it the same as I was. So it's they either liked the deals or they didn't. So it wasn't that much of a problem. I didn't ever get off the Gulf Coast. That's pretty much where I worked, and when I went on my own, I stayed in an area that I knew about. A lot of the work was around Houston. And Houston and Beaumont aren't that far apart, really, anyway. Wasn't much different than being with Sun, really. It's I was making all of the decisions with Sun, and I figured, what the hell? I might as well do it for myself. Well, I don't think I ever got out of it. If you're working and drilling wells, getting wells drilled, that's what it was all about. I was foreign with Sun Oil for, I don't know, that was in Colombia where I was with Sun. And then later on, came back and out of Beaumont, and there's a lot of work going on at that time. So I just figured that, what the hell, just I could do the work for myself that I was doing for Son. Yeah, I like going out in the field and you're checking the work you've done on maps and stuff, and it's nice to see that sometimes you're right. Sun Oil basically taught me, everything I knew that period of time. I learned just about all I was going to learn. The knowledge you have, you're working with other people, and if you're successful at all in the field, that's what everybody's looking for, because you're finding something or doing something they want done, and they normally will always come back to you. If I could get the work, I could do as well or better on my own.
Well, we were both at TCU, and between classes or after class, everybody would meet at the drugstore on campus and have coffee or lunch and sit there and And one day we were in there. I was with the group, and they were in there, and somebody said, "Oh, here's McLeod," and everybody goes, no. And he had one of the boys that was sitting, guys that was sitting with us, had a class with him in geology. And so he got whatever he wanted at the lunch counter, and he came over and he sat down with us. And I thought he was a jerk. I thought, okay, and who is McLeod and what have you? And then I found out that he played basketball, and I thought, well, okay, so big deal. Then it got so that that he came in. We saw each other quite often. I mean, he didn't come to see me, and I certainly wasn't there for him. And he was there, and I don't know. We never really dated. We never really dated, and we went out a couple of times. I don't even know where we went or what we did. And then he graduated. I don't know if I still like him or not, And he graduated, and he got a job with Sun Oil, and they sent him down to Thibodaux, Louisiana. He was working down there, and he'd have 4 days off, and every 6 weeks, I think. Well, he was down there. And then in 2 or 3 weeks, he'd have 2 days, and then the 4. And one night, the phone rang, and it was about midnight, and it was George. And he said, "I have 4 days off at the end of the month." And he said, "I'm coming to Fort Worth, and we're going to be married." And I said, "Okay." My mother came in, and she says, "Who's calling at this hour?" And I said, "It was George McLeod." And I said, "He's coming up at the end of the month, and we're going to be married." And
she said, "Like hell."
No, she did not. She says, "Was he drunk?" And I said, "I don't know." And that was kind of it. He came in, and we got married, and that was 64 years ago. And I still don't know if I like him or not. We never really, quote, dated, I mean, like, it's Saturday night and George and I are going out, it'd be just, well, and so that was it. At the time, I was going to the Catholic Church, and they announced the banns of the wedding for 6 weeks before the wedding. Well, we didn't have 6 weeks, and the priest asked me, he said, "If I refuse to marry you," I said, "Well, there's always the justice of the peace." And he said, "Well, I will marry you." So he married us, and there was my mother and his mother and I had a friend that stood up with me as a bridesmaid, and he had his friend as a groom, and that was it. So no $1,000 dress, no nothing. I mean, it took. So here we are, and that was it. At the time, that was another reason why he came up, because he was sent back to Beaumont, and we went to Beaumont, and we were there 2 years, and that's when we went to South America then. And Michael was born and Michael was born in Cartagena, so he's Colombian. He has a dual citizenship, and so we were in Colombia for 2 years, and then we came back to Beaumont. I wasn't real fond of Beaumont. His job was okay, except we didn't have any money. I mean, the company is great, but the money was really, I mean, we really struggled. We really struggled. Plus the fact that he had quit school in his junior year to go play pro ball, and he lost his scholarship. So when he decided that he needed a degree instead of bouncing the ball, he came back, and he had to borrow the money to go. So we not only had our rent and our food, we had his, I mean, he made sure that we got the loan paid off. You know, that was the first thing we did. We did all that, and we really, it was hard. Because at that time, the ball players didn't get the money they get now. You know, I think they got a nice pat on the back, and that was it. And so, you know, he said he realized that he needed a degree to, you know, if he was going to make a living. When we first went down, we were in Bogota for just a little bit. I mean, maybe three or 4 weeks. And then we went on down to Cartagena, and Cartagena is much like Houston in the summertime. It's hot all the time, and but it was on the water, and there was always a breeze. It was very nice, and but different. The company had a house, so we were in the house, and of course he immediately leaves. You know, so here I am. Fortunately, the maid that they had in the house that went with the house was from San Andres Island, and they were British owned, so they spoke English. They spoke English and the Spanish. The only thing I knew in Spanish was "Somos las florecitas," that's "we are the little flowers," and I thought nobody cares if we're the little flowers or not, you know. So we did that, and he went out, and I heard him say he enjoyed it. Yes, he enjoyed it, because he was gone. And I was stuck back there with it. But it was nice. So after we moved, we did move into an apartment in Cartagena. And it was real nice, because everybody in the apartment had the same deal. I mean, you know, their husbands were gone all the time. So there was always somebody to go to the store with and then, and of course, we didn't have any cars. None of us had cars. And so I knew his boss for a while, and I called him and I said, "This is all well and good." I said, "But I want a car." I said, "I want something to drive when I'm here." He calls back, and he's laughing, you know, and he says, "All I have is a Jeep." I said, "Bring it, I'll drive it." So he brought it, and the girl in the apartment across the hall, we just drove the wheels off of it. We thought it was fun.
What was it?
It was a Jeep.
Oh.
Ed's in a Jeep out there. He thought that was the funniest thing, you know, and I don't think he thought I'd drive it. The company house, though, was across the street from the naval station. And so the U.S., the ships would come in, some of them from the U.S. flying the flag, and we'd get so excited. We'd say, "Oh, there's an American flag, there's an American flag." We'd go downtown to their downtown, and sometimes we'd go to the movies. They'd have movies with Spanish subtitles, so we would just go to the movie and come back. And we had the CPA of Sun Oil down there had grown up with George in the home, and so they already knew each other. So we kind of palled around with them, and And we played cards, played a lot of cards. Oh, it's canasta. We played canasta too. We lived there for about a year, and then we moved to Bogota. In Bogota, we had a house, which was way far out from town. I think it was 6 miles, but it was in a new subdivision they had put up there, but the poverty, I think, is what got me, was the poverty of the people. We lived across from a vacant lot, and there was a little shack over there made out of cardboard boxes and tin and stuff like that. And there was a couple there. And one Thanksgiving we had a turkey, and we finished the turkey and they put it out. And about 2 days later, the little guy from across the street comes over and thanks us for the turkey that they had dug the carcass out of the garbage, and they had eaten on. She had made soup and all this stuff, and I mean it was just garbage to us, but it was 2 or 3 days meals for them. So, but I think the poverty was what. And it was worse in Cartagena. Well, I don't know. It was bad everywhere. Mark and George were here. They went down as little babies. I don't know. George was about 2, so we must have been 3 after he was about 2, and then Mark was about 20 months old or something like when we went down. And the funny part about it is they all learned the Spanish. I mean, they picked up the Spanish immediately, and here George and I are not doing too well. And when people would come to the door, they were real bad about coming to the door and selling stuff. And I'd be trying to talk to them, and George or Mark would say, no, say it this way. And I'd go, oh, okay. So, but they did, I mean, they just picked it up. George Jr. and Mark were born in Beaumont. George was born in 55, Mark was born in 56, and Michael was born in 58. We left Columbia and went back to there, and to Beaumont, and we purchased. There was a place outside of town in Beaumont, and we purchased two lots: a corner lot that was 1.5 acres, and a lot in the middle of the block that was 2 acres. And George and one of the neighbor guys built our house. They contracted the slab and the electric and all that, but they put the studs up and all the wall. I mean, they did it all. You and Mr. Wright.
Yeah, Mr. Wright engineered it.
He didn't.
How can you not know how to nail boards together?
But Mr. Wright was about 60 or?
Yeah, he was a carpenter, so
he was a carpenter, and to old
well
us,
familiar with it.
And to us, he was an old man. He's probably 60 or like a kid now. They built the house, and poor George, he came in. I tell you, when they drove the last nail, and he came to the house we were in, and he said, I hate to tell you this. He said, I've been transferred to Houston. I said, that's wonderful. So. He stayed at Sun Oil, I don't know how many years after that, and then he left them and he went with King Resources, and I don't know if they officed out of Louisiana or what, but anyway, he was there. And then his last place that he worked was at Myers and Lasher, and they had an office downtown, and he worked for them downtown, and they broke up their the company. I mean, it was friendly. It was a friendly breakup, and they had a year's left on their lease. On what building was it? I don't know. And they let George have that, and that's when he went out on his own. It was scary. I mean, it was really scary. And all along, he's always said, "I know what I'm doing. We're going to be all right." And so finally, I thought, well, I guess he does. So we did, and we've had our lean years. Believe me, we have had our lean years. And that's the oil business. You have it, and then pretty soon you're on top of the mountain, and then pretty soon you're down there in the bottom again. Especially when you have, like you say, when you have three kids that all need, you buy them a pair of shoes today and they don't fit next week, and you go, oh, and so I've worn a lot of boys' loafers, That's kind of where we were financially. I go, oh, I can wear these. And Scott's 11 years later, and he's wonderful. I think he's wonderful. The kids thought he was a pain in the drain, but he's really, George has always been a very hands-on father. I know you said something, what were his hobbies? Well, his hobby was anything the kids were involved in. And I guess the first thing we got involved with was the Little League. The first year that the oldest one, or maybe Mark was, I think it was the two of them were on the same team. And we didn't win a game. Not one game did we, and best loved team in the whole thing because we never won anything. And George said, well, I can do as good. So then the next year, I think he took a team, and he had a team up until they were...
Not tired of losing.
the 0-15. that was our motivation.
Well, it did turn around and go the other way.
But he did have the first undefeated team of the league over there. And it was real funny because I think I told you they gave him the scrubs. He went to the draft, but when he got there, they said, oh, we've already, and here's your list. And it was the little skinny guy, the tiniest one that ever appeared and all of this and would go after a fly ball like this or the grounders, And I thought, oh, there's another long season. But he took them and they worked out every day. It would be pouring down rain. You could not see your hand in front of your face. And the phone would ring and it was, are we having ball practice? No, we're not having ball practice. It's raining. Well, we could go out there and it'll, and I said, I don't think so. But then they won the whole thing with all those little scrubs. Well, what he'd do, he would break it up into, they would go out and they would pitch, and then his pitchers would go and they would pitch and practice, and then his others, and then he taught those that went after a fly ball like to do this, and it all just came together.
Yeah, just work at it every day.
George doesn't like to lose.
No.
No.
That's not an option.
So, it's a win or not, The next year when they had the draft, they changed the rules and they could only work out 3 days a week. But we had little guys come and we kind of pitched in the yard and kind of caught, and we were the only people in the neighborhood that had a pitcher's mound in their front yard. And then when we sold the house, we drove by it one day and they'd taken it down. I was quite insulted because we love that pitcher's mound. George always coached the boys, always coached them. But they did well. They did very well. And then they went into scouting, and he drove the scout bus. Then when they went to camp, they took some fathers with them, and he always managed to have that time off. And he went and he drove the bus. He drove a whole busload of little boys down there, and he got, I don't know where he got, but he didn't have any brakes on the bus. So that was one. And then another time he had driven the bus and he was going through his billfold when he got home, and he didn't have a driver's license. It had expired months ago. So anyway, but they had a good time. He did well with his time, and he'd always leave the office early and come and we have 4 eagles. Mark and George got their eagle together, and then the other 2 got theirs at a later time, but they were, yeah. But no, we love scouting. Oh, I love scouting. I thought it was really neat.
Just the kids and doing things. I enjoyed camping out, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, sometimes you want to choke those little darlings, but you have to restrain yourself.
Well, I don't think it was ever a sacrifice for him.
No, I enjoyed all the camping out and all that stuff.
And then they went from scouting to he also did a basketball team. He had a basketball team, and they won the city championship one year. Mark and Mike, I think, were on that team, and they won that. And so we had we were quite busy. We've been here a long time. I think since Mark and I was asking Mark how old, since they were about 7 or 8 years old. We've been in Houston. Well, he and his brother, when we first he and his brother, he was talking about they were really pumping each other up, how great they were. He had a friend who did the scouting, and he had the older boys, 15, 16, something like that. And they just kept patting themselves on the back. So they got 3 other old people, and they met, and his name was John Barnes, and he met John down at the Y, and they were going to play this young boys. And they weren't down there too long, and they came home, and they were beat. I mean, they could not, they were just flaked out, really. And he said they ran down the court twice, and that was it. So the young guys really got them good.
Those guys put it to us.
And then the being kicked out, the one thing that I love is we had the little boy named Hale. Last name was Hale, Hale, and he we had the ball game, and he was doing stupid stuff, and George would say, "No, don't do that," and he'd call him over and he'd talk to him, and he did. I mean, we did everything, and he was out there. You just wanted to hide your head. He was so dumb, and he did something, and George jumped up and he said, "Oh, Hale," and they blow the whistle and they eject George for cursing. And he kept saying, "No, that's his name. It's Hale, Hale." And so out he goes. He was out looking in the sun, and I don't know who took over, but poor thing was out looking in the window watching them. I don't even know if we won or lost. And then when he had the Boy Scouts, they decided they were going to canoe. That was here, and he takes the boys, and they go out. They go to some river with the canoes, and they meet a Girl Scout thing, and they were big canoers. The leaders, the mothers, were big, and they go out, and the mother has the camera. The boys are there, and one of them decided that it would be so great to dump the girls' canoe over. And they jump in the water and they turn the canoe over, and they think it's so fun. And the mothers are livid. And of course, after they get home and we do all this stuff, then the scout department calls, and the mother said, she had, and at this time it was a lot of money, a $200 or $300 camera, which was now at the bottom of the river, and so we had to come up with the money for the camera to replace the camera. And then we had a boat. And at the time he said he wanted a boat, I thought he was nuts, but it was the best money we ever spent. I mean, it was really, that was when we learned that we had this much space, and we were all going to get along, and we were all going to have a smile on our face and be happy. And I think it really, and it taught us, I think, to respect one another. He'd take off in the middle of the week, and we'd go to Lake Somerville or to Houston, to the
Lake Houston.
Yeah, to Lake Houston, and go out for a day or 1 or 2 days a week, and we'd always take a little friend, but it's like I said, we learned to get along with each other, to respect each other. It was really a neat thing.
Oh, I like the water. Love the water.
But here again, I think
just being on it.
It was another thing, that I think we were all together as a family, and it was really, it was really enjoyable. and we'd water ski. The boys all learned to water ski, and that's what we'd do. And we'd take, of course, a picnic lunch, and we'd lunch someplace, and they did. And then we'd come, and everybody was, then when we'd get home, everybody was real good about cleaning the boat, cleaning the water, the salt water off or what have you. And we just, it's like I said, it was just money so well spent. The boys grew up, they did that horrible thing of growing up, and one of the last times it was taken out, I think George Jr. broke his wrist water skiing, and then we started having trouble with the motor and things like that. So we just, we decided it was time to get rid of it. So we did. I really enjoyed my family when they were growing up. I mean, they were never but that's not saying I didn't have times that when they were gone that I think, oh, this is really neat, Phone rang in the middle about midnight one night, 11 o'clock, and it was the oldest boy, and he said, "Mom, I'm in jail." I said, "You're what?" And he and Bill and Brad, and they were. He said, "We were arrested." I said, "What were you doing?" And he said, "We were. They had gone to the McDonald's or something up here, and filling their oats because I think they were seniors in high school. And the girls had gone to the bathroom to smoke, and so they were in the bathroom smoking, and the boys were, and the manager told them to leave. And well, they weren't. No, we're not. We're going to wait for the girls. He told them to go outside. When the girls came out, that they go out, but he was locking the doors, and they weren't. So he called the police. And the police came and drug them off. So we had to go bail them out. And I asked him, I said, why did you call us? I said, why didn't Bill call his, or Brad call his mom? And he said, because I knew you'd be there. He said, you always are there. So I thought, oh, that's so sweet. So, yeah, I did. I thought, oh, that is so really sweet. And we scrambled around here to get their bail money. He said, Mom, you have to bring money. Oh. I guess really I could say the kids really came first. I mean, we made every game that they ever played. We went, and they probably wished we weren't there, but we were there. And of course, George was always talking about well, he did so and so, and he should have done so and so. I mean, the coach, he should have done so and so.
Well, I'd let it out every now and then.
Yes, and then he'd talk to his kids when he'd get home. Well, why did you do so and so, and why didn't you do this, and why didn't you do that? So, but I will tell you this: I've never seen George play ball. Everybody's always shocked. I said, I've never seen you play ball.
Oh.
When I met him, I didn't like him, and he was playing ball, and I didn't like him, and I just, I mean, why do I want to go and watch somebody run up and down with this little ball that I don't even care for? He did. His sister told me that he used to have a paper route, and she said he would throw the paper route and go to the Y, and she said he'd be there all day shooting baskets. So he worked hard. The oldest one he's a landman, and he's with BP, and Michael's a landman, and he works with him, and Mark's the geologist. But Mark does a lot of financial part. Mark likes numbers. Mark really likes numbers. And Scott is just whatever kind of comes along that gives him a paycheck.
The young one, not the young big one.
Yeah, he's probably the biggest of the lot. George Jr. has never worked with him or for him. He's always been with a company or
BP.
Yeah, but now he's with BP and been there quite a bit. But he's on contract with them. Mark and Mike both got out of school and went to work with him. They have their differences. That they're brothers. And they have their differences, but we get them all ironed out. And at the end of the day, everybody's back to liking everybody, I guess. Well, our grandson works over there, too. So it's Mark and Mike and Andrew over there. I loved it. I loved it. I just, I mean, I was real happy when we had our first, the only boy, and then, like I said, the rest of them have all been girls. So but no, I thought it was great. You can say, "Do you want this piece of candy?" And the mother can say, "Well, you'll ruin your dinner," and you can say, "Here, have a piece of candy." I think what it is that you love them, and you don't mind helping to take care of them. But at the end of the day, you say, "Here's your baby, take it and go home," and they go home.
I love them. Love the kids.
The little girls all seem to like to sit on George's lap. They all like George. But of course, we're into great-grandchildren now. We have 21 great-grandchildren. And only half of the kids are married. So as my sister-in-law said, she says, "Girl, when you all die, nobody has to come because you will fill the church yourself." So we have 11 granddaughters, and then so we have 16 grandchildren. So then the rest of them are boys, and then
or 5.
and then I think we have 11 great granddaughters, and I think it was the same thing. No, I don't know. And they're all wonderful. They're all. Well, I mean, and they really are, and all the kids. I think all the kids married well. They all married girls that we really, we love each one of them, and then the granddaughters have all married really, really fine, upstanding men. Very proud because it's like I said, all of our children have served their church, their community. They've worked with the kids, and I mean I feel real good about the children. I feel that, like you say, whatever we did right or wrong, well, it's all turned out and been worth every bit of it. Every bit of the struggles that we've had, and the fun times, and been really good.
Well, she did all right. No, she's been really a great influence on them, and it's been very good. And there's great love between them.
You're going to say between us. I'm still wondering about that, George. I'm still wondering. But the nice part about all of this is that all of our grandchildren lived here while they were little. So they, I really felt sorry for these people. Say, "Oh, my daughter's coming from California, and we, her yearly visit." And I thought, "Oh, how sad, how sad." But we had all of them right here in the city. The granddaughters are the ones, they marry guys from school and they're off. But at least we had our grandchildren here, and they all come here Christmas Eve. And we used to all kind of get together on Easter Sunday, and we'd have a big egg hunt out in the front yard. But we're kind of,
they grow up.
Yeah, they all. But to me, they're like my children. They all have good qualities. I just feel good about them, and and I just hope the greats do as well, and I think they are. They're all on their, and I do believe in discipline. I don't believe in beating a child to death, but I do believe in discipline and
leaving their little butts red.
Yeah, but they, and they all seem to be on that path. And what I like about it is, I'm back to baseball now. As the kids got older, you could see the little boys that, when they went, they could catch a ball, or they kind of knew what was going on when ours were playing. And then as they got older, you could see the little kids come out, and they couldn't catch the ball. They didn't really know what was going on, and I could just see the fathers pulling away from the children. And today, all I see are the fathers, and I think it's so sad. He was such a hands-on father that it just, I just can't understand why I don't. Well, of course, I don't understand electronics to begin with, but I just don't understand. That now our children are being electronically raised, and they're missing out on so much. When ours were really little, he was gone, and I thought, here I've got at the time I thought I've got 3 little boys. I'm by myself. They're going to gang up on me and beat me up. And I thought, either they're going to rule this roost or you are. And so that was when I decided that I needed to really be, kind of, I don't think I was strict, but I did have my, what's he doing on? I didn't put up with temper tantrums and stuff like that. And we just didn't do things like that. He told me when George Jr. was born, he said, don't ever tell him, wait till your dad gets home. And I said, oh, okay. So we never did. I did do a lot of, when your dad gets home, we're going to talk. You are going to tell your dad this, or you are going to do that, but never, whatever. When they got older and we ground them, it was just, if he did it and I didn't think it was fair, they were still grounded. And that's just the way it was.
We pretty well agreed on most things.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but it's been fun. It has been fun. I mean, like I said, I've enjoyed the boys and I've enjoyed not having everybody here now. We're enjoying just ourselves, and it's been a real good. We have our ups and we have our downs, and we we do.
I enjoy her.
So we
enjoy being with her.
Yeah, we enjoy doing things together, and he's always telling me I get my way, but that's not true. Oh, I mean, here again, you just have to hit a happy medium and go on. I will say this: I did not realize his basketball ability, everything that he had, until we started digging up our pictures and old scrap. We found a scrapbook that had things, and I really never realized. I mean, when they said, "Here comes McLeod" at the drugstore, I might have jumped up and said, "Yay!" But he was. I mean, I did not realize that he, for his time, that he was good. Well, it was kind of that, Dad did this and Dad was good. I mean, I didn't realize, that he had made over 1,000 points. I didn't realize he'd done this. I didn't, and it just all. I mean, when he'd talk about games. He never say, and he's never been braggadocious. He's never been. I mean, what he did. Nobody knows.
It was just something that happened. That's all.
The only thing I remember, he was fussing about having to wear a tuxedo. That was, I mean, nobody else was worried about what he'd done or anything. He was worried about getting in a tuxedo. But I mean, he's never, like I said, he never really talks about
it's an honor doing something you love, though.